tell me about the change in policy. Is that for you been a good thing? Do you think the new policies are better? Or are y'all still in the learning phase and it's hard to judge? Or
Well, we don't really know what the new policies are yet. We just know that they're coming, and some of them have been put in place and some of them haven't. The new person just took over after the second semester was over, and so some of the things we told that were going to be changed starting with next school year, and I don't know that they're worse or better, they're just different. And one of the things this morning that came up, and I think it'll be a good policy, and they've already implemented this, is when we order things from our central stores. In the past, they've brought them, they've dropped them off, and if we have an issue with anything, if it's not all there or if it's the wrong thing, then we always just call and let them know, and then they switch out or whatever. Today, when they brought this huge order, we had to sit and go through everything item by item as was on the purchase order, so we would know for sure that we had the right things. So in some ways, I think that's a really good thing, because that way you don't have to worry about the follow-up calls or anything, and there's no trust level there. I mean, it's there or it's not there.
Right.
In years past, they've just kind of taken your word for it, or we've taken their word for it that it's there, and then when we start looking, we go back. And now they say if we don't sign off, or if we sign off that it's there and it's not all there, it's our tough luck.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not like we can go back in and say, hey, y'all said you brought 12 of these and there's only 10 here. You actually have to count through, which is going to take longer each time they come to stop. And sometimes we're really busy and don't have
Right.
time just to stop and count it. So it's going to just be an adjustment period. I don't know that it's bad or good. It's just different.
Gotcha. So if y'all are busy, what happens?
I don't know. Today's the first day that's ever happened. I guess we'll have to stop what we're doing and go and count with them, because they can't leave until it's counted in.
Gotcha. Huh. Okay, so the district buys in bulk and puts in the central store,
Yes.
and then y'all order from the central store?
In certain instances, they don't carry everything, but they carry a lot of items. They carry the high demand items, like folders and paper and all that kind of thing.
Do you know how they pick which item to buy?
They bid it. Everything
Okay.
has to be sent out on bids, and different companies have to submit a bid, and then they go and they look at quality and price and quantity and how lots of different variables that
Okay.
they look at through the purchasing department, and then they put everything in the warehouse. And so that's another kind of an issue, because whenever they order it, whatever they pay for it is what we pay for it. But they try to produce an online catalog so that we can go in and look and see what those prices are. But they change, because say one time they may order 10,000 boxes of paper.
Yeah.
And it may cost them $27 a box, and that price is passed on to us. However, they order 10,000 boxes of paper, they start running out, then they have to bid out again for it. It may cost them $28 a box or $25 a box, depending on who they order it from and what the prices are at the time. And that comes into play. Like, I just ordered a bunch of cafeteria chairs.
Yeah.
Well, they had 18 of them. I ordered 75. They had 18 left at one price, and then the next amount was a price that was like $7 a chair higher.
Oh.
So it makes it very difficult to plan for your budgeting when you don't know exactly what those prices are going to be.
Gotcha. Interesting. So are you familiar at all with their method for evaluating the characteristics of an item, like quality control, or is it just like a complex algorithm of like price and quality?
I think it's everything together. Yeah. And I think that the director of purchasing and the buyers are the ones that deal with that. And
Okay.
we don't really have any control over that. We get what they have.
Okay. Does our Board of Education have any like certain policies for purchasing that you know of?
The only thing that I know of that they really have is if it goes over a certain amount, they have to be contacted before we can spend that much. They allot us so much money per campus per year that's called site-based money, and we are the ones who decide who gets how much. There are lots of variables on that too. According to how many students take a particular class, how many sections we have, how many teachers we have for that class, or those different classes, that department. And it's divided out. And it's divided by the number of students. We get so much money per student per day. And so that's how they base it, because that fluctuates so much. They base it from the previous year in October. They have a snapshot day. I think it's October 1st each year that they stop and they count how many students are at each campus, and then they multiply that out by how much money each student is allowed per day. Then they send all that out, and then it's divided out. So it's quite a process.
Oh, okay.
The budgeting process is a big part of that, and that starts the year before.
Okay.
So we've already submitted the budget for next year and got that back. So
Gotcha. So we know how much the site base, and then you have to meet with Steve and determine how much
each group gets.
Okay. Is there are there any like state purchasing requirements that affect us that you're
Not that
aware
I'm aware of.
that would affect central admin people?
Yeah.
For bidding? Okay. What are requisitions?
A requisition is like, it says a purchase order request, and you requisition certain things. The teachers will turn in a requisition to me, and then I go in and I type it into the computer in Munis, and it's still at that point considered a requisition until all the approvals are done on it, and once the approvals are completely finished, it's converted from a requisition into a purchase order. And a purchase order is a legal and binding document that is sent to the different companies. And when they get a purchase order, they have to follow the guidelines that are on that purchase order. And there are legal rules on that.
Okay, so a requisition is what the teachers fill out. You put it in Munis, and who's doing the approving?
I approve it first, and then it goes to Steve, and then it goes to the director of purchasing. It goes through several steps, depending on what it is, how many steps it goes through. The department heads are the ones, the teachers fill it out, send it to the department heads send it to me, then I enter it. So it goes through multiple steps. And this is something that teachers have a hard time understanding. This is not something that you can purchase and be reimbursed for on a purchase order. It is never done that way. It has to be something that is pre-approved, and that's why it goes through all those steps first.
Gotcha. So it goes to the teacher, then the head of the department, then to you, then to Steve, and then up to central admin.
Right. And then whichever how many people up there have to approve.
So requisition and a reimbursement are totally different.
Yeah, reimbursement is, say, you ask Steve if it's okay if you buy, say, a notebook for all of your kids in your class. And Steve says, yeah, that's fine. We have to figure out where the money's going to come from, because that cannot come from site-based. That's a whole different thing. That's a purchase order. But if he says, yeah, go ahead and do that, and we'll cover that, then that would come out of our activity account fund.
Okay, and where does the money for activity account come from?
It's raised through different means. I mean, like all our fundraisers that we have at school, there are different clubs and all that raise their own monies.
Okay.
So
is that the same thing that we use to like pay for faculty lunches and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Activity funds?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's different fundraisers.
Totally.
But that's not site-based. Those
No.
are all through requisitions.
Absolutely. It's like apples and oranges. And you cannot mingle those two funds. You can't mingle site-based and activity funds at all. And you can't mingle, within the activity account, you can't mingle campus funds and student funds.
Okay, and the student funds are the ones like for the organizations?
Clubs.
Okay. All right, so does athletics have a student fund?
They do.
Okay, all right. So, okay.
They also have a site-based fund through the district that's not through us.
Okay, so then when they do requisitions, they send it to the
Athletic department.
Okay. All right, cool. I think that's pretty much all I need to know. That's interesting stuff. I didn't realize how complicated it was.
And see, that's the thing. People don't sit down and ask those questions, so they just assume that, hey, if I want to go buy all these things for my classroom, and I can come back and do a PO on it. It doesn't work that way.
Uh-huh.
And they also have limits on how little that you can do a purchase order for. Because it costs a lot of money. When you think about the process,
Yeah.
it costs a lot of money to produce a purchase order. When you go through, I have to approve it, he has to approve it, they have to approve it, this has to approve it, then it has to be printed, then it has to be mailed, then it has to be, And a lot of companies say it's not worth it to mess with that.
Right.
So if it's less than $50, they won't accept them.
Wow.
So, I mean, there are lots of ins and outs.
Gotcha.
So it's good. Everybody should do what you're doing and sit down and ask these questions, because then they understand the process. It makes it easier to understand what you're
Oh,
doing.
for sure. Because before this, I had no clue.
Exactly. And most people don't. And why would they? Because they don't deal with it.
Right.
But if you're actually asking the question, you know, like I said, if you go out and buy all these things for your classroom and then you come in and you say, I want to do a purchase order for that, I'm going to say,
Too bad.
what do we talk about?
Yeah.
That's pre-approval. That's got to go through those processes. But if you need things for your classroom and you requisition them and you go through and I order them and it goes through the process, then when it comes in, all you have to do is say they're here.